Kuzuzapo, everyone. A very warm welcome and a good evening to all of you here. We're thrilled to have you join us here at the festival. So the whole day has been centered around our love for culture, arts, and literature. It is the same conviction that told Homer's epics, gave MLK speeches, and shot Kubrick's films. It's the aspiration to craft stories that resonate with each other. One such story that connects us all is water. In this context, water has always been a very powerful symbol in literature and culture, representing life, purity, and renewal. From the ancient text of Rig Veda, which extol the virtues of rivers and their life-giving properties, to the poetry of Rumi, which symbolizes water as a continuous flow of the divine, connecting us to our past, our myths, and our collective consciousness. As Toni Morrison poignantly writes, all water has perfect memory and is forever trying to get back to where it was. And the poet Natalie Diaz extends this thought in her work, posing a deeply introspective question: do you think the water will forget what we have done today, what we continue to do so? And this question resonates very deeply with our discussion today. And in today's context, we face unprecedented challenges posed by climate change. As we gather here today, we're not just reflecting on water as a resource to be guarded or managed, but rather as a living entity that holds our shared history and future together. Therefore, let me introduce this session on future of water with our two esteemed speakers. So first, the first question I pose is to you, Mridula. You say in the introduction of your book, Watershed, that if climate is the executive producer of climate change crisis, water is the lead actress. Can you please explain what you mean by that?
Hello, can you hear me? So thank you for having me here to your beautiful country. I'll confess, I knew nothing about climate change about 11 years ago. And the way it introduced itself to me was because I ran out of water at home. So we had drilled our bore well for 500 feet, and we didn't have any water. And at that time, I just had my second child, so I'd taken time off. I have a corporate background. So I was like, what's going on? Why is this happening, and what can we do about it? And that's really what led to my book and my explorations in climate change. So there is, in the introduction, I mean, think of any movie that you've seen. I'll go for, say, Bajirao Mastani or any of these movies. Who do you remember? Executive producer or Deepika Padukone? And if climate is a shark, the popular saying goes, then the water is its teeth. Think of all the things that's affecting us. Drought, floods, glaciers melting, the seas rising, even the humid heat, the deadliness of humid heat all come from water. And that's why I started writing about it. And I've been listening the whole day. And when we look at the future of the water, we really must look to our past. Because the best way to show how climate change will affect us is to look to our past, because climate has changed so many times before. Civilizations have fallen. Dinosaurs have died out. Seas have risen, seas have fallen. Continents have change themselves. Climate changes all the time, and the best way to understand what will happen in the future is to really look at the past. And water really shows us what will happen there. So I'll stop there for now.
I find going into the future, it's always comforting to look at those who came before you. So the next question I pose is to you, Khurshid. With your experience in climate and disaster resilience, what do you identify are the three mega trends that, keeping in mind the broad narrative of past, present, and future of water?
Let me, thanks, Mridula. You have made my beginning a bit easier. I come from Bengal Delta. I'm a Bengali, and I come from Bangladesh. And if you look at the historical grand scheme, today's Bengal Delta, which is basically part of West Bengal and much part of Bangladesh, is a gift of Himalayan water and is a gift of Bhutan, Nepal, particularly these two countries, all the glaciers that carried away the silt and that created that the largest delta in the world. And if you connect why that Bengal, Sohail has mentioned the prosperous part of India, and if you search within India, the Bengal was the most prosperous. A simple reason was the blessings of water from Himalaya. And that also gave birth, if you look at Bengali literature, music, poetry, dance, water plays a very important role in my view. So I worry about that. Part one, the usage water, the mega trend, that Himalaya is heavily affected by climate change. 1/3 of the glaciers are at risk, and many of them will disappear when we reach to 1.5 degrees Celsius of global temperature, which is very likely now. Therefore, the water, as United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, is our most precious common resources that also unite us. Then the entire connectivity, I'm not talking about navigation, our shared civilization, our connection would be at stake. That's number one. Number two, when we talk about water, I think the three things, Mridula, if I talk in a simpler way for our students, there are three things that's happening. One is we have too much water when we don't need it. That means we have flood, no? Or we don't have water when we need it most. Half of the global population are living in water-stressed areas. And third trend, I think, which is happening in a third age of water. We're living in a third age of water. When we have taken water as a granted and as a free goods, free will, and we're polluting. And 80% of the wastewater we're releasing to the environment without treating them. Imagine a world where we may have water, but they would be dirty water, and they would not be potable. And that is where I see the second trend, that we're moving into that direction. And that has a bit of footnote that I wanted to give, is the tension over water. I heard from a colleague of mine in Bhutan, when he was child, he used to guard water overnight and from the window, because somebody else will take water from their paddy land to another paddy land. I think that is resolved now. Bhutan has resolved that. There is water. Still, there are a lot of areas water is a challenge. But today's children, even if you push them, they will not stay overnight and guard their water. But it is not necessary as well. I think we're going into a phase where water is going to become a source of tension, source of the new shape of geopolitics and conflict as well. We have seen in the past in Mesopotamia, we're seeing in Middle East, and that is where I also feel a bit worried, and I feel that is going to shape. And third part is, but these are all bad news, but there are good news, and that is, I feel, one of the mega trends. But I will hold it for the time being for next question.
So this discussion is gathering very insightful, very invaluable insights into important elements in Bhutan. So we come to Bhutan's forest. Bhutan has always been very far-sighted in ensuring that our forest cover is maintained. Wherever you go, you hear 70%, 70%. So Mridula, I wonder, while forests have always been spoken of in terms of carbon storage, What makes them such powerful shields in building water resilience?
Oh, thank you for sort of putting the past, present, and future of water. Off stage, we'll talk about the Ilish March as the geopolitics of the Ilish March, because I think that's a good story of water. But before I get into forests, I want to tell one story. And it's something I've seen in Bhutan for the very short time I've been here. The spirituality you attach to nature, right? And whenever you go to a monastery, the first thing you do is take off your shoes. And it's a simple action, but it's an action that shows respect. So in India also, we treated water as sacred because most of our goddesses, the Ganga, the Yamuna, are water, and we had the sacredness. So let me just, one of the things we had before the British came was water in India was managed by communities. There's a very good story, and I'm going to take a minute to tell that story and then go to forest. I come from a place called Madurai. Madurai is very dry. And, but we have one river that floods occasionally. So in this story, the river flooded. And the king said, he asked each person to give a person to build a bund. A bund is like a wall to prevent the city from getting flooded. There was one old woman who lived alone, and she sold a form of rice cakes. And she had no one. So she said, look, I'll give you the rice cake, but please give me someone work, do my work. No one came forward. So the main temple of Madurai is the Meenakshi temple. And the god there is Shiva. So, and the stage for that city is this 64 divine, dances or games of Shiva. So he takes the form of a young man and said, I'll help you, give me the cake. And she said, okay. And he eats the cake and sleeps. And the king's guards find him and hit him with a stick. And the story ends by saying, every person in Madurai felt the blow. There are two lessons from this story. Even the gods are subject to the laws of water management. And second, everybody has a role, right? So everybody felt the blow. So that story being aside, let me come to forests. I don't know if any of you are reading the news, but next to the state I'm coming from, Kerala, there are huge floods. There are lots of people who have lost their lives. Right? There are huge landslides. So what is a rain here? I mean, I was looking at the news and seeing Bhutan has landslides, but I don't think you've had fatalities and you've had just entire shelves of land falling down. And if you ask me why, if you look at a tree and you look below the ground, you can see the roots almost like fingers holding on to the soil. Right? So when the sheets of rainfall, and the rainfall in Kerala is very similar to the rainfall in the northeastern Bhutan, etc. The tree cover is like your insurance. It's your shield and your protector, holding on to the slopes when the rain falls. Okay, it's 5 minutes, so I'll shut up. The other thing that trees do, and we'll handle it in Q&A, is that it stores the water and releases it in the form of streams that Bangladesh and India are very grateful for. So thank you.
Wow, even gods must abide to water laws. So coming down to humans and international organizations like UNDP, Khurshid, what are some key policy issues that UNDP is addressing globally to mitigate water-related challenges? And are there any new innovations or strategies that you think are crucial in protecting our planet from a future of hydro crisis?
I see that I have very limited ability to make it very concise, because I see a signboard that side saying, stop now, stop now. Okay, I think we need to stop. What do we need to stop? That's the UN major agenda. And I was reading a review of the book Peter Glick I've shared with you, and I encourage all of you to read that. He has explained very scientific, yet in a convincing way, atom science doesn't convince. You have seen that during COVID time, that the agenda of efficiency, that we had past 3 phases, it's a efficiency revolution. And what UN is doing at a global stage since 1970 is convening the member states for international water conference. And last year there was one where we discuss about the roles and responsibility, the contribution of the nations, looking at the water distribution, the controlling the pollution, climate change. I think what we need to, I think Mridula, you would also agree, I think let's not look at a one-way traffic kind of relation that we need to do A, B, C, D, and it will happen. Because water is connected to agriculture. Because if you think 70% of fresh water is being used by agriculture, water is connected to our food habit, water is connected to the technology we deploy, water is connected to the urbanization, water is connected to the pattern of agriculture. So we need to look at it in a systemic way, and that is where UN is focusing. The couple of things that I want to highlight that UNDP is doing in Bhutan, over last decade, we have worked with the government on, I was looking at least 15 projects over $85 million worth. Contribution from UNDP and the government as well. So 3 areas where we're focusing. Number 1 is looking at, yes, we'll come for Q&A. Number 1, we're looking at making sure that the water is equally distributed, because Bhutan has a very unique geology, I would say. You would find the water is down there and the human settlements are up there. So I think the challenge is how to make sure that water is equally distributed. Second area is looking at the risk of Gulf Lake outburst. So Bhutan Fast Early Warning System, which is in Punakha and Wangdi region, that is something the UNDP has helped government to set up, but we need to do more. And then we have currently, we're working on almost 50 irrigation and drinking water schemes. And recently we have started a new scheme, which is almost $6 million project, $5 million from UNDP and $2 million from government, also community, a lot of community contribution. And that has brought water to an area, and farmers now able to cultivate after 20 years. So I think there are a lot of work going on, and we have also invested heavily on water efficiency in agriculture sector. Some of the technology that we worked with the government and introduced can reduce water uses up to 40%. And all the irrigation schemes that I talked about, the water efficiency agenda is very, very important. One thing that we're not doing, because Bhutan, you are a very conscious nation, and Bhutanese should be very proud about what world is thinking for tomorrow. Bhutan is already doing. You talked about how precious is water. Water is a way of worshipping the goddess and the purity. The management of wastewater, and is not just efficiency, but also making sure that water remain clean. So there are a lot of innovation and investment going on, almost 130 countries by UNDP. And it will take a lot of time. I was just looking at Q&A. So over to you.
Yes, so I'm afraid we're running a bit low on time. Actually, I had some more questions, but I'm not going to be selfish. So we open up the floor for questions and answers. Any thought-provoking questions? The gentleman there.
Good evening, Mridula. Tenzin and Karim. A very interesting topic, water, a shared responsibility. I come from Gelefu. My name is Dao Penjo. I live in the south, where water plays a crucial role, because that's our water diplomacy. We share uninterrupted water to India. Bhutanese do not trap that water. We do not tap it or trap it. It flows uninterrupted. That flows to Brahmaputra and to Jamuna in Bangladesh. So it's a very crucial, not just from the point of view of livelihood, but also for diplomacy. And this is where Bhutan has been fostering and trying to do things. But unfortunately, the importance, at the same time, the kind of support that we receive are very minimal. So this is one area I think literature, through literature, especially young people should know about it and then voice out. Because this is where it should go out. Because today we only talk about hydropower, but we don't talk it from the point of view where it should go uninterrupted to India and to Bangladesh, so that the people living on these basins could enjoy the water resources. And it should be, as you know, UNDP, it's a human universal right. Water is a universal right. So for that matter. And we know that civilization have started because of water and will end because of water. And in Bhutan, we have a saying that it would be a degenerate time when we start charging and rationing for water. So we are reaching that point. So I think it's a very important topic, and especially I think for young people, because living in the capital, we do not fathom or understand the role of water it can play in building relationship across borders. Thank you so much. So my question basically was, what would you do in order to support such things that would go beyond just the literary talks?
I'm actually going to disagree with you because I think water has always had a price in the subcontinent. It has not been a price that we pay for with money always, but it has been a price that we pay for with labor. Okay, and that's very, very important, because when the communities come together, I'm just going to share what happens in India, and I think it's somewhat similar here. Usually, building a piece of infrastructure was considered a karmic brownie point, right? So you put in, it's a work of charity. So in India, we have a lot of these lakes and tanks which are built, and it's considered a karmic brownie point. But the people who actually maintain the courses, like cleaning the channels, building the bunds, desilting, all of that was labor that they gave. And that labor wasn't free. I mean, they got benefits for that. And I'll tell you why that's important. Because only when you give it either respect or a price will you create what Mr. Alam ended with, which is innovation. Right? Today in India, I invest in startups. I'm seeing a dime a dozen startups in EV and carbon and solar and all that. I'm seeing precious little in water, right? And it's important we get that, because if we don't get that innovation, why don't we treat sewage? I have a chapter in my book called The Brahmastra in Our Back Pocket, because sewage is always there. And if you treat it, it becomes a source of water. Why don't we treat it today? And one of the things that I conclude is because we don't respect water, either spiritually or with a price. So, yes, and I mean, you need to respect it. The way you respect it, whether spiritually or through labor or through a price, that we can have a discussion on.
Thank you so much for bringing that issue. I don't have an immediate answer, but I think we need to find an answer for that. The reason being, you mentioned part, let me just add to that. In Bhutan and many parts of the world, urban people are already paying for the water, no? So water has a price. I think what we need to look at the water economics. I think we have taken water as granted for, because it's there. So rainwater, if you look at the way we treat rainwater, it's just gone. So we need to look at how to price water. I think what is happening in Bhutan, what we're doing in certain communities, the communities in upper area, they are conserving the watersheds, and downstream community, because of they are getting benefit, and there is a water tariff mechanism which is already established, and community is working that out. And the water tariff system is now introduced in some part of Punakha, some part of Wangdi. But how to take that to international scale? I think if I understood your concern, that Bhutan has always been a donor, no? Is donating water to Bangladesh and India. Nepal is doing the same because Bangladesh and India is a beneficiary of Himalayan water. And you said these two countries should always be grateful. But how all these countries can come together to make sure that there is a mechanism whereby we share the responsibility, but how that will form a new economics, I haven't thought about that. I have some ideas, but which is not yet for public. Thank you so much for that. And over to you.
Any more questions from the audience? Yes, I guess no one has any questions because we did so well. Well, I would like to draw the session to a close. Thank you to our audience for listening to us. Thank you to my esteemed speakers for their invaluable insights. And I, for one, hope that this conversation does not die within this room, but rather gets carried on to other platforms as these speakers continue to do so in their lives. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much.